6:31, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag? Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess to start with, we were looking for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Pat. Any discussion? All those approve? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. To start with, we need to give Mr. Salee certification to authority to do things as a superintendent.
Yeah, and this is to give me permission to, for example, like approve the Title I budget and things like that, that Melanie will submit to the state, that I need to go in and review those and approve them. So it just gives me permission to do that. It'll be short-lived, obviously, for this month, and then when the new superintendent comes in, you'll have to do the same thing for that individual.
So I'll need a motion on that?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to give Steve Salee authority to do business for the district.
Motion by Pat,
Second.
second by Angie. Any discussion? I think we'll do roll call on this, right, Steve?
Yeah, we need a roll call.
Okay. Justin?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we acceptance of resignation by Reed Olson as secondary physical ed teacher.
Yeah. Reed came in to meet with me this morning. He has been offered a full-time position in another district, so by rights, the LeRoy has him under contract for this year, and after the July 1 date, Reed needs the board's permission to exit his contract with the LeRoy-Ostrander district. So Reed asked me to ask the board for acceptance of his resignation. It's almost unheard of where a board would hold a teacher to the contract. I did talk to Aaron today as well. We have a lot of different things that are open right now. Obviously, there's several different positions open, so I think it'll give the district the opportunity to bundle a few things or take a look at, depending on what we decide to do with Mel, with the sharing agreement, office staff. There's just a lot of different things in play right now, so I think this might actually create a little bit of flexibility for us in this position, and I would really hate to hold somebody back from moving on to a full-time position if that's what he wants to do. So I would recommend that you accept Reed's resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept Reed's resignation.
Motion by Angie,
I'll second.
second by Justin. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carry. Next, we got discussion and possible action regarding business office sharing agreement.
Yeah. And I can start with this one as well. I have talked to a lot of people on this one, and I wasn't familiar with the agreement, but I did get a phone call from Bruce Klain, who is helping Scott Hall in the transition while Scott's finishing up his superintendent's license at Southland. Bruce called me, I think it was earlier this week, and asked what the LeRoy board's intentions are with this shared agreement since Allison left, and my understanding is the agreement is, in one agreement, is specific to Allison and Mel all in the same agreement. So now Allison left, and obviously Mel is still here, so Bruce said, what does the LeRoy board want to do with this? And I said, well, I haven't had that discussion yet with the LeRoy board, but so Bruce just made it clear to me that the Southland board is really pretty much open to anything, but they just would like some clarification so that they can start to plan, because obviously they need to figure some things out as well. And so I finally got a chance to talk to Mel a little bit today, because I'm not familiar with all of the, arrangements in the office and things like that right now. And in talking to Mel, she feels like there is plenty of work to be done here at LeRoy-Ostrander to be able to bring her back full-time. The Southland job is a huge job with the construction project. They have a ton of things going on. I did talk to Scott Hall this afternoon, and he was very clear that they're very open to working with the Leroy board, whatever is best for Leroy. If you want to continue in the sharing, they're okay with that. But in talking to Scott today, I think that they really need to get things figured out pretty quickly, and they haven't figured out what their plan is if Mel is pulled back, but he said we will come up with one and we will make it work. So I think in Scott's opinion, it would be if the Leroy board would like to end the sharing agreement with Southland and bring Mel back full-time, they'll figure it out on their end, and he said it really won't be an issue for us. It's nothing against Mel. They love Mel. It's not that they want to lose her. And then in talking with Mel too, and she can talk a little bit more specific about the things that need to be covered here, because I know with Cheryl retiring, Allison leaving, Mel being shared, there's definitely some holes here that need to be filled. And then now with you got the activities director open, you've got community ed, what's the other one? Oh, transportation, all things like that. So these are all things that we really need to move quickly here to get thrilled. So after talking to everybody today, and I can have Mel explain a little bit more about what she thinks it's going to take to get things moving smoothly here, but my recommendation to the board, especially knowing that Southland is okay with it, my recommendation would be to end the sharing agreement with Southland and bring Mel back to Leroy full-time. But and Mel can pipe in a little bit more on the details.
I would just say after, thinking about it and with everything going on, we're really short-staffed right now. And you're going to bring, last week you guys had talked about bringing another person in. That's a whole new learning curve for that person. So really, I think if we went back sort of like the structure when I started, we had Cheryl full-time, and we had the business manager full-time who does the finance and payroll stuff. What else besides that, accounts payable, that other person can do. They can probably help pick up some stuff, some time off. When I first started, all the time off tracking was done upstairs. That has now been brought to the district office. And there's other things that we picked up and stuff as well that still need to be covered unless we put it back on other people that had it before, but they've picked up other duties themselves too. So, and then it just gives everybody a chance, new people to come in, get trained, and learn everything, because it is a big, steep learning curve, school finance.
Well, I think the district's very lucky to have you here half-time, and I think we'd be even more lucky to have you here full-time, so I certainly don't have an issue with it, if you're willing to accept the additional responsibilities.
Do you think we
I
still
did
need to
that when I
hire
first started.
another person as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
I still think it's that hiring that other person and bringing me back full-time.
The health job, teaching job is not a full-time job. So would you be able to take some of these other positions and combine them and maybe get a full-time position for that individual?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to need to take a look at, is probably bundle some of those positions, and that's something we're going to need to work on here pretty quickly. I did talk to Aaron a little bit this morning and told him to start thinking about how we would do this. So the way I'm envisioning this is, because the health phy-ed position is technically part-time right now, you could take that position, I don't know if it's a 0.6 or whatever it is at this point, and then possibly bundle some of the other things with it, and then post that position so people have an opportunity to apply for that position and then interview. I would probably post that open until filled, because quite honestly, you don't have a month to post it like you normally would. But throw that out there and see you're not going to get a whole lot of applicants for that, because it's so late in the game, and as you know, licensed teachers are hard to come by. So I think those are things that, and we can always tweak it as we go. We might find a candidate that's really strong in these areas and it doesn't make sense to give them this, but at least post it that way, see what you get for applications, and move forward from there.
So is the AD one of the positions you're thinking of bundling with that?
Yeah,
and posting it?
I would post it that way, just for the simple fact that typically your phy-ed teachers have the athletic background, and So, it doesn't mean that you might get people that apply that come in and interview and, that may not be a good fit for them, so then you may need to take a look at other things. But I guess I would try to bundle it to try to entice some people to come in and apply for it, so.
No, I just asked about
Yep.
that one specifically, because that's
Right.
one we haven't had discussions on, and nobody's
Right.
mentioned if we're posting it or not posting it, or what
Yep.
we're doing with it.
Yeah, I think it needs to be posted, and you don't want to appoint somebody. I mean, that's not good practice, so I would recommend following your hiring practices and at least post it, put it open until filled, see what type of applicants come in, and then Aaron can lead the interview process and go from there.
If they were able to bundle, Mel, and get some of them positions filled that way, and if you came back full-time, do you still think we would need an additional person on top of that? Or do you think that would satisfy what's needed?
I talked a little bit with Aaron about that today, and Mel, I think I can take this one. And I think whoever you have come in, if you start to bundle those positions, some of those are very time-consuming. It's a lot of hot topics. So I think that if you have some office staff to do some of the day-to-day things and have somebody come in, I mean, Aaron made a good point when I talked to him today. Whoever the person is you hire for this position could more or less be in the role of overseeing whether it's transportation, AD, community ed, and then some of the day-to-day stuff could be with that office staff. So I think that would make the most sense. So I definitely think there's enough work, because you're not going to be able to find somebody to come in and teach Phi-Ed, be activities director, run the transportation, and have to drive roads and, check roads. And I mean, that's just a lot of stuff. But if you can delegate some of the other stuff, it might be a little bit more manageable.
So it would be your recommendation, Mel,
Yeah.
to end the sharing agreement completely and bring you back full-time?
Yep, and we can get back on our feet here and get people in the positions.
And keep in mind, it has to be agreed to by both boards. So if Southland did have an issue with it, they can always say, no, we don't agree to it. But in talking to Scott and Bruce, and they were very uncomfortable. They didn't want to speak on behalf of the Southland board because they really haven't had this discussion. But both of them made it very clear that they think it's going to be fine and they'll move forward. So they didn't see an issue.
Well, I guess I'd make a motion to end the sharing agreement as we've been discussing it with Southland, and bring Mel back here as full-time.
Motion by Justin,
Second.
second by Pat. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll start a discussion on the interview process for interim superintendent. I'll let you have that one.
All right,
if you want.
so we just need to, and I think this kind of goes hand in hand with number 8 as well, set the interview dates for the interim superintendent. But as far as the process goes, we'll narrow it down today to figure out who the board wants to interview, and I have some ideas for that you can consider when we get down to that on the agenda here. But I think that, the first thing is we're going to need to find a date here, and obviously the sooner the better, because you're going to want to go into negotiations and things like that with your new interim. Typically, I would recommend that during the process that the entire board interviews the candidates, because this really is a board decision. And this is probably the most important task that you have as a board is hiring and selecting your new leader. So I would not recommend that you select a committee to do the interview, and I would try to have the full board present, so if you can find a date where the entire board can be here. Now, I understand it's summer and it just might not be possible, but it's not unheard of that if somebody has, things can happen too. Somebody gets tied up at work the day of the interview, so things can happen. But the other thing, when you're a candidate interviewing, it's just a very good show of faith that the entire board is there. Everybody's got an interest, where if it's a committee, it just looks like, well, aren't the other ones even interested in it, when you're a candidate applying. So I've never interviewed for a superintendent position where the full board wasn't present, so I'd recommend that you are all here for that. And then after that, you can appoint a committee, 2 or 3 people to sit down with the person that you select and enter negotiations. So I'm willing to help guide you through the process. I can do, once you narrow down the people to interview, I can help you, and between Mel and I, we can do a lot of the background checks for you. check on some of those things behind the scenes and, move this process along. So, if we can do, depending on how many people you select to interview tonight, it might be possible to get this all done in one evening. You could take a look at doing it on a Saturday, whatever you decide. I know weekends are tough because people, especially in the summertime, people have plans and, but I'm thinking if you select, however many people, we can probably get those scheduled throughout an evening and get them all done in one evening. Worst case scenario is you do 2 evenings, but that's fine as well. And then I will help guide you through the process. So the next thing is just really coming up with an interview date. And right now I would try to find an evening where everybody's available. And, I'm thinking that, I don't know everybody's work schedule, but if you could start like late afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock at the latest, get going. And I think for this, typically the interviews run about an hour, but I think you could probably scale back a little bit on the questions because you're going to get a pretty good idea in the interviews as to whether or not you're even interested in whoever the candidate is. I would recommend scheduling approximately 45-minute interviews, give you 15 minutes in between so you can stretch a little bit, and then just get them back to back to back. And so I would schedule them on the hour. So maybe you start, whatever your schedules are, I can be here anytime, 3, 4, 5, 6, and go from there. So moving on into the next piece of the agenda, I think the next thing is just set the date that you want to do it for the interim.
The hard part is going to be getting a date where everybody can be
Yeah,
here.
and I realize, and you may just have to schedule one that's not going to work for everybody. I understand that, but quite honestly, the sooner you can get going with it, the better. But
So, looking at, what time, looking at the date, but also what time we would start interviews, to some extent, that's determined by how many people out of those that we
Yeah.
applied.
And that's a good point. I thought about that. So we may want to take a look at who we're going, figure out how many people we're going to interview.
Because that's going to set
The start.
basically
Right.
the start and end time for.
So here, and I have not looked at the applications, so I haven't seen any of it. I've only seen the list of candidates that Mel gave you, and so I'm taking a look under the credentials there. I don't think it makes any sense to interview somebody that does not have the license in hand today. That's the last thing you need as a board, is to hire somebody, get them in here, and then find out they can't get licensed. So I just think you might as well scratch the people off the list that are not licensed today. And I wouldn't even play the game of, I can have the license by September 1st or, whatever. So my thought today,
Or maybe 4.
maybe 4, yes. So my thought is, as a board, just to even save time and effort, you could just agree, let's just interview everybody on this list that has the license in hand, and go from there. So then we can work on setting up the interviews. So that really narrows it down to 4 people. So if you as a board want to do that, we can contact the 4 people, set up the interviews, and so you're looking at 4 hours then.
I'm okay with that.
That makes sense to me.
With only 4, I don't see why there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody went through the stuff today and saw a huge red flag or something with one of the licensed people, then you could scratch that person off the list. But otherwise, I would recommend you interview the 4 people that are licensed.
So did we have the 15th marked down as a date?
I was
For a
thinking it was the
special
12th or the 13th, but
13th's special election, so it's.
oh, that's right, that's
Yeah,
right,
what I'm
okay.
talking about, that.
That's why we talked about that.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's why that date was.
Did we already have a date set or not?
No, I don't think we did.
No, we started to talk about it and then we kind of just
Okay.
pushed it off.
I didn't know if we
No, I
finalized
will,
it or not.
I think Teresa will be gone till,
Should through next week.
through the 18th.
Yeah.
So if we do plan something next week, we know Teresa won't be here.
I would offer to go have to live here if you need. Just meet Nathan halfway or whatever.
Well, I don't think we can wait all the way through next week,
Yeah.
really. I mean, we need to do it soon.
Where is Teresa at? Just curious.
Presley,
Okay,
Brainerd.
that is quite a ways.
So we're thinking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week?
Yeah, for me, those days would work. 4 o'clock is about as early as I can get here.
Okay.
That's pushing it.
Well, if we
even.
do 4, I think 4 would be just fine because we would be done by 8.
Yeah, and we can, and it's up to you. I mean, we can do 4 or 5, say, if you're okay going 4 in a row, and then we could order pizza or something for the board, because you're obviously not going to, and then, I mean, at the end of the interviews, that way you've got time to discuss it and stuff like that, but.
So, one question I do have, I mean, this is an open posted special meeting like anything
Correct.
else.
And these interviews are open to the public.
So, we did have a question in here over the past couple of weeks about having this process available for people to watch and participate in. That's the only concern that I would have, is having the whole works too early where people aren't going to be able to get here if they want to be here. So that's something.
Starting at 4, you mean? Yeah.
It's not terribly early.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Right, and I think it's easier to do one day than 2 days and
Yeah.
start and do like 6 and
Right.
7 o'clock
Yeah.
to make it available for
But
more.
I
I think
just-
it's easier just to do.
I wanted to make mention that
Yep.
Yeah.
that was a point of concern for the people that were here, 10 days
Right.
ago.
Okay.
Maybe what we could do, rather than say, let's do it on this particular date, we could have a 2 or 3 days that would maybe work for each of us, and then talk to the candidates and see what works for them, and try and put it together where we can find a day where it can work. Because
If we
what
have to
works for
post a
us may
special
not work.
meeting, we
Yeah,
don't have
I
time for
think-
that.
Yeah, I think.
We're just going to have.
Yeah, I would recommend, I mean, if somebody's really interested in this job, they're going to
Yeah.
find a way to be here.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it. I've never, as a candidate, I've never been given the option, we'll make it work into your schedule. It's just, you've got an interview on this date and time, and you're expected to be there, so. I think, yeah, you could run into a whole bunch of
Yeah.
All right.
loopholes with that.
So yeah, for me, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Fridays probably would work better for me. Make 4 o'clock easier, but, so,
I can make any of them 3 days, make no difference to me.
Yeah, I don't think it matters to
Yeah.
me either.
Me either.
so,
Wednesday and Thursday would work best for me.
okay.
I could do it Friday, I just would have to change some things around, but.
Yeah,
That's,
it'd be nice to let you go back home.
and if I,
It's, yeah, I'm here that weekend anyway, but I've got a meeting until 4:30 on that Friday, so.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine with Wednesday or Thursday then.
I like Wednesdays, but I can make either day work.
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday, it makes no difference to me, Wednesday or Thursday.
Well,
might as well do it earlier.
Might as well do it Wednesday, get it done. Every day counts at this point, so.
so we'll set it Wednesday, the 14th
4 o'clock.
at 4 o'clock. And Steve, you'll take care of contacting the 4 candidates?
Yep, between Mel and I, we will get the, contact each one of the 4 and set up interview times for Wednesday, the 14th.
Okay. I did have one question about the candidates. There was 2 of them that had written down that they also had their science masters. It might fit into a need for a science teacher here. And, it may be something you could ask ahead if they would be willing to do that.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. Next, we got discussion of applicants and selection of interviewees for intern superintendent. Basically, we need to give Mr. Salee and Mr. Hungerhold permission to look at the applicants. They can't just do it without our permission. It's a board responsibility to look at the applications. And if we want to assign anyone to work with us, we have to give them authorization to do so. So, in order for Steve and Aaron to look at them, we have to give them authorization. Is there any questions on that, or?
I'll make a motion to give Steve Salee and Aaron Hungerholt permission to be part of the applicant and selection for interviewees for interim superintendent.
Motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Angie. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. I guess, is that anything else, Steve?
Nope, I think that's it.
Guess we'll look for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Justin,
Second.
second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned at 6:57.